games short of his 300th career victory. Top 15 all-division, all-time winningest coach in college football, two-time national champion, and in the top 6 or so, depending on how you define the highest level of college football. And you're out. Brian Kelly, the latest to be fired at LSU. Glad to have you with us on the College Game Day Podcast. Late October, we are recording on Monday, October 27th. Rece Davis, Pete Thamel, and Dan Wetzel. And the first thing I texted Pete yesterday when the news broke of Brian Kelly was, okay, what family event got ruined today? The Halloween parade in the south end of Boston, I would assume, was a scratch as a result of LSU being embarrassed on Saturday night, and they were. I understand why the people would have been angry about that performance. Rising to the level of a fireable offense for a guy who's won 10-9-9 and has the accolades on his resume that I just mentioned, I would differ with that. Part ways at the end of the season, fine, go ahead. 53, 54 million, whatever it's going to be. Pete, this unraveled in a hurry. I mean, earlier this year, I was giving them the number one vote in the country as the top team in the land. Defense looked that way for much of the year. What happened?
Well, the U2 song, Rece, Sunday Bloody Sunday, both speaks to the last 3 weeks of college football and at the Thamel household, I can assure you, too. It's, you know.
Exactly.
The days,
exactly.
Yeah. What happened is like
exactly.
is complicated. So the day started. My understanding was they were going to make staff changes, and that was kind of the plan going into something needed to change after that. The offense clearly had been lagging behind at LSU. Right. Like it was, I think in the 90s in total offense, it had been top 25. It dipped about 40 spots in passing offense. Garrett Nussmeier's never gotten it going. Their offense underperformed. And so the thought and the plan was that. In the middle of the day, Brian Kelly left the office for a meeting, and Brian Kelly told a few people, basically like the plan is going to be to make these changes on offense, or I might not have my job. And as the day went on, the or became louder and louder. LSU is a place, Rece, and we've talked about this, that is fueled by visceral emotion, right? Tiger Stadium at night, like even early in that A&M game, the blocked punt, like the roar of that. There's just a tangible, palpable passion that drives that place. It can work against you, as you saw the empty seats in the fourth quarter. But that same type of passion also is behind some of the decision making there, right? And this, you got a university without a president. You've got a board that has been, some of the political appointees, and then you have a governor who we learned last year,
Jeff Landry,
is involved. I mean, the puppeteer of some of this, especially trying to like negotiate the buyout and everything. The puppeteer is the guy who wanted a live tiger on the sideline. So let me say this again. One of the key people in this whole Brian Kelly dismissal saga is the governor of a state, an elected governor of a state, who had a week-long push to put a live tiger on the sideline of a football game. If that is not the most
bad idea, you're saying it like they used to do it. They used to do it. Maybe if the Tiger was there, A&M, Marcel Reed not running into that end zone so many times, is he?
Yeah.
This is, I agree with Dan. This is not a bad idea. The reason I didn't like Jeff Landry's version of the idea is it's got to be Mike. You can't have fake Mike out there. You got to have the real deal. You got to pull him out of the big tiger habitat enclosure and bring him out there. You can't bring fake Mike out there.
Don't you think like the state of Louisiana had a few things like higher on the priority list for the governor to be marshalling?
No, absolutely not. They do not have anything more priority. Look, I don't want the PETA people. I get it that it's terrible for the tiger. Okay, they don't need roaring crowds. Okay, so I'm all in favor of pro tiger life, but I mean the things in it, whatever. They used to bring it. They used to have it. I thought that was, let's not just.
They used to ignore.
You got to think outside the box, Pete. It's a new era of the sport. You got to think outside the box.
Yeah.
Proceed. I'm sorry I stepped on your otherwise
okay.
lucid point.
Yeah, I have a lot to say, but I'm almost speechless. I think that might be the best way to sum this up.
Did this one surprise you, Dan? I mean, look, everybody knew every time somebody loses, especially at LSU, the fans go to try to turn over the bus. If they're behind at halftime, they get mad and leave. I mean, they've got awesome fans, but Pete made the emotional point. BK, and I've always thought it was a strange fit, starting with the whole family thing at the beginning, but he's a proven winning coach. But ultimately, he lost a bunch of big games at LSU. He got embarrassed at home a couple of times. This was the most recent one. And it seems like everybody is behaving as if you are going to win all of these big games. If you don't get out, that's why Franklin's out. That's at the end of the day, that and the embarrassing manner in which they lost is why Brian Kelly's out. So, I mean, did you think they might ride this one out and do the things that Pete's talking about in terms of staff changes and so forth?
Yeah, I was surprised it happened by like Sunday morning. I mean, first they were leading at half. Okay.
Yeah.
That's when I told Kate, I don't think we're going to have much news tomorrow. I'll be at the Halloween parade, and I did go for a little while, but yeah.
Good.
Anyway,
good.
Go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
That part in Anchorman, like that escalated in a hurry. So yeah, that part. But look, here's the reality. Last three coaches won a national title at LSU by year 4. They paid Brian Kelly a ton of money to come in, and it just wasn't really working. I mean, can we talk about the run game now? Like, I think that media scored a point there. They were right. When they had Jaden Daniels, they had a bad defense. Now they got a good defense. They can't run the ball or, now smart. It's LSU. They expect, if you're getting paid $10 million a year to do pretty much anything in this country, you better be really, really good at it. You better deliver results. And at LSU, the results are national titles or, man, you better at least be in this playoff. He had a good first year, made the SEC title game. Here's my thing with Brian Kelly and LSU. Fit, I didn't really care. If you win, you fit. Like, they don't care what your accent is, who you are. His problem was trying to come up with the accent, but whatever. Brian Kelly was an excellent football coach for Notre Dame. Excellent, and I don't think that should be rewritten. Before Brian Kelly got there, the perception was they'll never be good. They got to join a conference. This program is
academic headwinds.
Yes. Oh, it's Rudy. It's just Newt Rockney. These people are delusional. He made them good. But what it takes to win in college football in 2025, and I'm kind of like, we're doing this every week, right? Can't wait for next week. Who's going down next week that we talk about? But we said it with
wait.
Florida and with Napier and James Franklin and all that. The skills you need to coach Notre Dame in 2015, in 2019, and the skills you need to run LSU in 2024, 2025, they're not complete. There's a Venn diagram there, but it isn't 100%. It's I don't know what percent you need. And Brian Kelly was a good coach for the last era. I don't know that he's a good coach for this era. And
why?
All those accomplishments are great, but he would talk. He went on a rant like 2 signings ago. We're not out here buying defensive linemen. That's not what we're going to do. We're going to develop relationships and go in and talk to mom and tell them how I'll make your kid great and you'll make the money in the back. Like, what do you mean you're not buying them? That's the rule. You can buy them.
But then they went out and did it.
Well, they did it anyway.
They had a really good transfer portal class last year.
They did. And he ended up doing some of it. There's no question, right? But I feel like all of us have covered college athletics for a long time. And there's always a point with older coaches. The game changes and it's subtle. I'll use basketball as an example. All of a sudden, AAU coaches become the point person in recruiting. And not, I just go in and see Coach Smith at Central Catholic, and I've known him for 30 years. I don't even talk to the high school coach anymore. Well, I got to talk to this guy. They're uncomfortable with it. They're not dialed in on it. And I think Brian Kelly is of the era that was begrudgingly going in on, I got to pay the player. I got to deal with an agent. Like, you just got to be like, hey, this is it. I think about this. I read this story this week. I think it was ESPN. I don't remember who wrote it, but it was Charlie Weiss Jr. and all of the Ole Miss coaches gathered around tape last spring, watching Trinidad Chambliss to play Division II, and they're going through his cut-ups, and they're like, are we seeing what we're seeing? And they call Lane in, and Lane sits there for like an hour and says, get the guy on the plane now. And they didn't sit there and say, we already got enough guys, or we're not, like, they are all in on trying to find players. And I think you can do it. I'm paying a guy, or I'm recruiting, I'm doing this, but are you really in on finding that guy? And so I don't know if Brian Kelly is or isn't. But what I would say is all the skills that I thought made Brian Kelly an excellent coach, and I thought he'd be an excellent, go to LSU. He all of a sudden gets those 5-star athletes that he wasn't quite getting at Notre Dame. This guy should win. It's a different sport now than 2 years ago, 4 years ago, let alone what you did in 2018. Don't care.
Dan made a really good point. They've won, although I've contended that there are three things atop. Nick Saban's going into the Hall of Fame, in College Football Hall of Fame, deservedly so in December. There are three things that stand out above everything else on his resume, in my judgment. Number one is obviously the championships. Number two, or co-number two, is the ability to never, ever, ever, after that first year at Alabama, lose games he was supposed to win, because we see every week some unranked team beating a ranked opponent. That's big. Here's the other one that's right there with it to me. He fixed LSU, because for half a century before he got there, almost half a century, LSU was a coaching graveyard. Everybody would screw it up. They would go in, they'd have a good year, they'd immediately fall off. Nobody could get it right at LSU until he fixed it. Now, I think Les Miles was a terrific coach. Eccentric, wildly entertaining, hilarious behind a mic, whether intentionally or unintentionally. But he was a good coach. He proved that at Oklahoma State, and he won. I know sometimes people say Les carried over Nick's talent. That was certainly probably true to some degree with some of the core guys early on in his career, but Les was an excellent coach. Ed Orgeron, great position coach, a guy that I enjoy being around and talking to. Lightning in a bottle, with Joe Burrow and Joe Brady.
Pretty good receivers, too.
Yeah, and great receivers. My point is, I don't think it's as easy there. Mostly for the reasons, Pete, that you outlined that led to Brian Kelly's firing. You have to have either the force of nature that is Nick Saban that we've talked about, Nick Saban, Urban Meyer, the only two coaches in this generation that I think fit doesn't matter because you fit to them. When they take your job, you fit to them no matter what. I think that might be what Scott Woodward, the AD at LSU, thought he was getting in Brian Kelly. That maybe a guy who everything would fit to him. And it didn't work out that way. And it's hard to find guys that can take over the entire DNA of the football program and make it fit to their will. And LSU might need that. And quite frankly, I don't know who's out there that can do that. Are there guys that can win there? Of course there are. I mean, it's a talent-laden place. But to think, well, this BK guy, he's not good. We'll get somebody in who is good, and we're just going to automatically fix it all. I don't think it's as easy as they think there. History would indicate that it is not.
So I think this is the question. Do we have a derby for Lane Kiffin now? Like I
think that's one of the reasons they cut BK loose. That's what I think, based on nothing other than my opinion, judgment of the situation. Am I right or wrong about that?
It's hard to know what that group's thinking, because it's hard to know who's with Governor Landry in the picture here. You have to wonder who's making the hire. There's no president. There's a power void. Politicians tend to like cameras. Like Landry was like glow tweeting himself from the other night yesterday, which I thought was hilarious. By the way, just for the chaos, which helps our podcast, Governor Landry's involvement will be very good for content in all this. I think going forward, is Scott Woodward making the hire? He's quoted in the press release. That would make you think he's safe going forward. But with the unstable politics of Louisiana and the large buyout that they're on the hook for, that they're negotiating. But as Tom Mars said, you don't negotiate your loan with Chase. Tom Mars, the famous lawyer who's done a lot of these, like schools trying to duck out of bad buyout deals. Like I think his line was something. Did you see that yesterday, Dan?
It was a great line.
Yeah. It was. Hold on. Let me.
I'll pay my car loan less. It was basically how exactly the contract says 50. What?
Yeah.
4 million?
How do you negotiate a $53 million buyout if they fired him without cause? That would be like trying to negotiate with Chase Bank to let you pay off your car loan for less than what they owed. Now, we all understand that because we've been in this business for a while. If Governor Landry wants to do like a hero save of some million. Now, if it's $53 million over 6 more years, are those negotiated? Hey, we'll give you more up front. We'll get it off the books. Some of that stuff is kind of common. It might take a little less to get a little more up front. But like, they're not just going to take half. And I'm not saying like Brian Kelly, but nobody's going to take like half of what they're owed. Like that would be that would be foolish to do that when there's no hint of anything nefarious involved here with that. And if college sports history has showed us, if you try to gin that up, if you try to be like, he took too many slices of cheese at lunch, or his player did, and that was a secondary violation, and no. Like if you try to gin it up, the courts will slap you directly in the face.
Didn't that happen to the University of Connecticut? Similar situation?
It did.
Kevin Ollie?
Yes, It very much did with Kevin Ollie, and they very much got slapped in the face. And there's been 5 or 6 since then, Rece. And my lack of sleep is going to prevent me from. I think Cincinnati tried to do it with John Brannon. There were a few others that have kind of popped up, and the courts have not shined well on. Surprise! I signed contract. I don't want to pay contract, which is what really that comes down to.
Let me address a couple points here. Okay. First of all, LSU is going to have the money. They once do you remember this story? They once mistakenly paid Brian Kelly $1 million extra. They had an audit. And they found they had overpaid him by accident $1 million. Old BK didn't notice. I don't know. Pretty interesting.
Bank error in your favor.
Bank error in your favor. This is Louisiana, man. They just got $1 million laying under a palm tree or something. I don't know. Down in the swamp.
They don't actually have a lot of money. That's the
well, they lost $1 million and no one noticed. So they got some. They don't have a lot of money until they want to have a lot of money. The governor may be like, look, my approval rating goes up when LSU's winning because everyone's happy. So maybe I'm throwing in. I don't know. I just know they paid a guy $1 million and didn't notice. That can't be easy. I would think people would know quickly. But what do I've never run a major university.
They better hope that check is already cleared for the donation that he made to raise money.
Oh, yeah. And then he donated $1 million. So he's kind of out too. Who knows what's going on with money in Louisiana? It's just happening. Okay. There's just money moving around down there. Nobody knows what's happening. Brian Kelly came to LSU, and I'm not Pete's the strength and conditioning. He knows every strength and conditioning coach in the country. But as I recall, when Brian Kelly came to LSU, he wiped out the staff, or almost all the staff, including Tommy Moffitt, I think was the legendary strength and conditioning guy there, dating back to Saban, who, by the way, is now at A&M. And brought in a whole new culture of guys, a bunch of new guys, and basically said, I'm going to do what I did at Notre Dame. I'm just going to do it at LSU, and we will get a little bit better recruit, and I can win a national title. So sometimes you got to go to a place and bring what you bring, but you got to keep, I'm not so sure you want cultural fit. You need a strength and conditioning coach has more to do with that than the head coach in a lot of ways. So just to that point, I think it was made. At this point, though, with the money, to me, the most consequential thing that happened, one of the most consequential things that have happened in college football in the last few years was Texas A&M firing Jimbo Fisher and paying $76 million. And they just, he was en route to like an 8-4 season.
Wasn't he duck hunting when they fired him?
They beat the brakes off of Mississippi State the night before, but it was like 50-10 or something, right? Yeah. And he goes, hey, all right. And they had a bye week, and then they just said, here's $76 million. You're gone. We don't want it. And this is why it's consequential, and they got a little lucky. They wanted to hire Mark Stoops, but the boosters vetoed it, if you remember that. And they end up with Mike Elko. And now they're number 3 in the country. And any Aggie fans, any Aggie boosters, anyone who wrote a check for that's sitting around going, boy, a $76 million buyout. And I think that has been amazingly consequential because all these other schools are looking around and saying, hey, A&M they bit the bullet and just got it over with. And now look at them. They might win a national title. And all you see in these 20, 40, $50 million buyouts, people are willing to do it. Now, they're also looking and saying, why the heck is Georgia Tech in the top 10? Why is Indiana in the top 10? How the heck can't we be better? All of that is there. We've discussed fans aren't in tune to how the world's working right now. They still expect we win all the games. And you're just not going to win all the games this thing. But then some teams are. So here we are. But I think that Stoops firing and it working out so well for A&M, that's your blueprint now for these guys. And you say, hey, we'll find the $54 million. No one's safe. Let's just get it over with. We'll go get Mike Elko. Here's the problem. A&M almost didn't get Mike Elko, and there may not be very many of Mike Elkos out there. But that's it's shoot first, aim later.
Let me throw something by you. Now, I think it's pretty clear. One would surmise that they will make a run at Lane Kiffin. Now, a lot of things could happen with Lane Kiffin. As Pete pointed out, Ole Miss looks as if whether it makes the SEC championship game or not, they're pretty much going to have to step on a rake to not make the college football playoffs. So that's going to change the timeline. As Dan has rightly pointed out, you can win a lot of places now. So what is the real motivation for leaving a place where if you win big, you're being paid, you get players, all of that kind of stuff, and they're going to build a statue to you there, going to some other place where they already have statues. Maybe you want that. I've pointed that out earlier. It depends on what you want. Let's just say, for the art of this exercise, that they don't get Lane Kiffin, meaning LSU, and he either stays at Ole Miss or goes to Florida or whatever. Then you have to go next and make a determination. Dan Lanning's already come out and said, I don't know how many times I have to tell you guys this. I have the job I want. I'm not going anywhere. Okay. So you look around. Things can change over time. Things become politically untenable. But do you know who the athletic director at LSU loves? And this is not just because he gave him a big fat contract at Texas A&M. He has loved him since he was the offensive coordinator at LSU under Nick Saban years and years ago. And you know who wants back in? John James Fisher. I think I got the John and James in the right order. They call him Jimbo. You get down to a level. I know you can't. I know you kind of can't.
He does love him.
He loves him. He loves him. I know that for a fact.
Scott Woodward.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that's true too.
When Doug got 76 million.
I mean, you're going to, if you don't hit, and no matter who you are, sometimes you don't hit on your first couple of preferred candidates. They might go elsewhere. They might choose not to come, whatever. It's a different era, as we've pointed out. It's not far down. That guy won games. I know it got a little squirrely at the end of Florida State, and A&M didn't quite do what he thought. I mean, can you even imagine? Politically, I don't think Woodward can do that again after he's already done it once. And with the BK thing, he probably can't do it again. But I bet there would be some people in Louisiana that wouldn't balk at that. They remember the glory days of when he was running the offenses. It's a far out there notion, but it just crossed my mind when I saw it because I know of the affinity that Scott Woodward and the regard that Scott Woodward has for Jimbo Fisher.
Here's what I think, Rece, becomes the biggest story, like you said, about Lane Kiffin and making the playoff. I think this philosophical question, which is a great podcast question because there's no direct answer to it, that's going to loom over the next 6 weeks. Can a college football playoff coach who plays his first game December 19th, I believe, take another job? And can a school wait for a college football playoff coach? My hunch, having been around a lot of these searches and how just intense they are and the scrutiny, and like my hunch is no. Now, could Alex Golish, John Summerall, Bob Chesney, one of these mid-major guys walk into his team room after they win their conference championship and say, hey, I've accepted the fill-in-the-blank job. I'm tripling my salary. You guys are all going to have opportunity to. We're going to go win the playoff, but I want you to know now so it's not lingering that I'm leaving. Could a group of 5 coach do that and get away with it? Probably. Could, Lane Kiffin, I think I did this in a column last week of like the guys who could move who are projected to make the playoff, right? So it's not Ryan Day or Dan Lanning or Sig. It's Brent Key, it's Lane Kiffin, and there was one other.
Clark Lee.
Yeah, Clark Lee, sure. Clark Lee, yeah, would be a great, would be a great example. Can a guy like that who's at a power conference job, can he wait it out? And can a school wait it out? Can you look your team in there and be like, hey, coach, everybody's talking about you for the Florida job. And you say, nope, I'm locked in and ready to go. And then if you, can you risk those relationships? And then look, the opportunity, like Ole Miss could win the national title.
Right.
They're not favored to do so, but they could absolutely do so. Yes. Like there's no question they could do so. So, and then if you win December 19th and then you win and you win and you win, what day is the title game this year, Rece? It was January
19th.
20th last year, 19th.
Yeah,
like
I think so, yeah.
How would it feel if you were like a coach? How would LSU be feeling? How would Governor Landry be feeling on January 18th if they still didn't have a coach? You think everybody know what it was if Ole Miss was in the title game? So the variables on this to me are fascinating, and I think it's a really interesting philosophical question that's going to guide a lot of these searches. Are you better off like Missouri now is on the outside looking in? If you're Eli Drinkwitz, are you better off for your personal future not making the playoff? Like, does that put you
coaching transfer portal?
Does that put you in
transfer portal?
Yeah. Does that put you in a better position to make a job to get a job?
You remember in Michigan basketball, did this '89? Bill Frieder announced before the NCAA basketball tournament he was going to take the job at Arizona State at the end of the year, and Bo Schembechler immediately fired him and declared famously, "A Michigan man will coach Michigan, not an Arizona State man." And then they put in Steve Fisher, and they went and won the national title. Yeah. So back then, no, I would have. I think you could do it and still keep your locker room because it's like, look, I'm the coach here now, and we're all in this together. Let's go win. I don't really think the players would be like, he's a traitor. Let's just torch the season. But I don't think that would probably go down. So I think a guy like Lane Kiffin, who is literally just, they're just shooting cannons of money towards him in all directions, he's probably not going to be available. It would be a very, very difficult thing to do to leave a playoff team if you are the head coach. And you're going to get ripped for it, and people are going to question you and all of that. So I think that's a pretty tough go.
I wonder about the cost down the line, because both of you guys, and I hope I'm keeping up with you to this level, have a pretty good feel for what this new era is like, and that some of the old feelings aren't as pervasive as they once were in terms of, loyalty to good old State U. In the past, I think anyone who did that always risked the being hit in recruiting. Well, he's not trustworthy, he's not honest. Look what he did to this last team. I feel like that's a lot different now for the reasons that we've all talked about, and that there's a lot of you guys can go with me. And oh, by the way, if we're all being honest with one another, you guys can leave, and you guys can leave, and we can bring in new players, and that's just the way it works. It's really an interesting dynamic, and it brings up the question to me. And you always react based on what political pressures or other pressures that you're feeling. But in a vacuum, if I were a sitting AD with one of these jobs and I had a guy that I felt like would take the job, I would sit till the end of the playoff, because for this reason: if you hire a guy that you're not sold on, you may be right back in this position in 2 years anyway. We used to say 3 or 4. Now you're going to say probably 2. So why not wait it out? It might hurt you the first season, but if you believe he's the guy, and he's the guy you want to tie your future to as the athletic director, maybe maybe that's what you say at the press conference. This puts us a little bit behind. We get that, but this guy's so good. And I'm so fired up about having him lead good old State U here for all of you wonderful alums that we're going to get through this year because he's a great coach. But boy, you just wait and see what happens the next. You know, I mean, I think I would go that if I had a guy I felt like was so far above everybody else, and I felt like I was settling if I didn't make the absolute best run at him at the end, no matter what his parameters were. Now, all of these deals get done hush-hush behind. I haven't talked to anybody, but, you know, my representative has. So maybe you've got a really good inclination to do that. I will acknowledge you have to feel really good about him saying yes when that guy's playoff run is over. You have to feel almost 100%. But I do it because I think it's more important to get the guy that you want than it is to get somebody in place for one season.
I think if I think for a Kiffin, maybe you sit there and you do that. You have to have a sure, you either really need a signed deal. The Kiffin's coming. Right?
Deal in the drawer. And it's done. And then you just sit on it because you don't want to be holding the bag. The problem is transfer portal is what? January 3rd. They moved it back some, but if you're coaching to the 20th, who's well, it's closed.
The team.
It's closed. Like it's basically closed.
There's
also no spring portal. Like you could come in at a high level with a lot of money and pluck a few key pieces to be fine the next year under this year's rules. Next year's rules, you can't do that.
Well, the big thing you would have to do under my scenario, and I realize all of this stuff is new and unfolding, is you would have to have money in the NIL collective, and all of the guys you want to keep, you'd have to say, we're overpaying you.
Yeah.
Here's more money than you're going to get to leave. And
I would think you would need a head coach to say, I'm going to keep coaching this school, but I am going to, like, you have to announce it. In the NFL, you'll have assistant coaches, you know, a coordinator is going to get a job and then they wait. And it's sometimes after the Super Bowl, right? Like, well, okay, this is who we're going to get, but he'll sometimes start working on his staff. I mean, I don't know how you could do it. If you're going to go deep in the playoff and you're coaching on the 19th and you haven't set up a staff at your new thing, you haven't announced you're going, who's sticking around? Why are the players sticking around? They're all getting poached. Like it'd be very challenging. And yes, you might get the guy for the next 10 years, but you have really just decimated your program. That you better really believe. Now, maybe a Lane Kiffin is worth that, but it's not like LSU's they're going to have very attractive candidates. They're not going to go very low. It's a different era of the sport. LSU's advantages aren't as great as they were, but there's still a lot of advantages.
Absolutely.
I think the only way you could really do it at a big time place is you hire a GM and you have that person put together the roster. And look, as much as scheme and fit and connection and campus and what your major is going to be matters, money matters the most now. So this guy would come in and say, hey, we're going to pay you this. We're going to pay you this. We're going to build it like this. We're going to bring in great people to coach you. Most NFL free agents aren't worried about like who's going to coach them as much as like what their salaries. They want to win and everything, but like they're not, you know, they're not as dialed in on that. And we're getting to that model. But again, if you're going to have like you're waiting for a thumper, you got to have the thumper okay with that GM doing this stuff. And if that guy's trying to puppeteer stuff behind the scene, it's a high wire act to get that done with a playoff coach. We could see somebody try it and it would be fascinating theater. Rece, how long was it between when they fired Mike Shula and hired Nick Saban? Wasn't it like 42 days?
Yeah, it was a long time. Mal Moore. Now, the thing is had Rich Rodriguez followed through, he would have had that job in a matter of just a few days because they spoke, as I recall, at the National Football Foundation banquet in New York City, and it appeared to have been a done deal. Then after that, I guess it's okay. Mal Moore has passed away. I remember having a conversation with him, and right after he made the decision on Mike Shula, and he said, "What do you think about Nick Saban?" And I said, that's like the best possible hire you could make. I said, but I would be stunned if he after 2 years is ready to come back. And I remember Mal saying, this was before the Rich Rod things, I think I can get him. And I said, well, if you can, you should. But I was an advocate for in full disclosure, I was an advocate for Rodriguez too. I think Rich is an excellent coach, is, and would have won at Alabama had he gone there. But, after that, when that didn't happen, he sort of went with the all-in thing. And then famously, as he has told many people and said publicly, that he told the pilot of the university plane, if I don't have Nick Saban on this plane coming back to Tuscaloosa with me, just go ahead and fly me to Cuba because I'm not going back either. So, it was, but it was a long time. It was well over a month when they were sort of rudderless, but you didn't have the dynamic of the portal, the way we have it now and all of that kind of thing.
If Alabama went 42 days on a job search now, Tuberville would install himself as the head coach of Alabama, right? He's going to be the governor. Like, there's got to be some kind of power in there. National state emergency. All of a sudden, Tommy T's back, baby.
Maybe Senator Feinbaum could insert himself.
Senator Feinbaum is the offensive coordinator. Tommy Tuberville, head coach. Or can you imagine those fights? You think Saban and Lane clashed on the sideline? Imagine Tuberville and Feinbaum trying to Saturday night on the road at Georgia. They'd be screaming at each other. That would be wild. Yeah, it's much more colloquial back then. Everything was more.
Are you guys willing to, I know this is a dangerous thing, especially for make it seem like we're advocating. Do you have any prediction, Florida, LSU, Penn State, who ultimately winds up with those jobs?
What's the best job? That's a good question.
That's a good question.
Yeah. I'd take LSU.
What would you take, Rece?
Probably LSU by a hair over the other two. They're all really good jobs. And I know I don't mean to default to this. I think it depends on what you want. It's been well documented. LSU doesn't really have any in-state competition at that level. A lot of great programs, but they're all at a different level. Penn State is a different feel from the other two. Florida, we've talked about this before on the podcast, is needed these, gigantic, transcendent type personalities in order to sustain any success. They're all great jobs, man. You can win national championships at all three places. I think you like the money at the other two places, the access to the money for the players, but probably some of the other intangibles would give LSU just the slightest edge over the two. And I might change my mind on that by tomorrow. I think Florida's really close on that too.
I think Penn State deserves a little shine in this conversation.
I
Easier path to the playoff, right? Like there are right now 4.5 vibrant Big Ten teams that are in playoff contention, right?
Are we that high?
What?
High?
So it's obviously
3.5.
Yeah. The middle class of the Big Ten is, simply put, not the same as the middle class of the SEC. So your week-to-week existence is different. That's one of the reasons why Tony Petitti was pushing the private equity thing so much, and why the Maryland Northwestern groups wanted it so badly, was because they know they need to get better. And the Big Ten knows holistically, and that's why some of the bigger brands of the Big Ten were in favor of it. They know they need their middle class to improve, but it's not that. And, Penn State is finally fully evolved from all their troubles. And I think they're ready to operate as a high-class Ohio State level athletic department. Like, for all of James Franklin's troubles on the field, talent on the roster was not one of them. Mm-hmm. They were engineered, prepared. They made, kill portal acquisitions big time. They were not afraid to go out and spend big money to address needs. Like, that place feels ready to go. You have good local talent, you have great tradition, and you have a more tenable path to the playoff.
Yeah, that was one thing. Brian Kelly, he said, I want to go see how I do on Broadway and play in the SEC. And, Little Town Blues, he got sent back. That didn't work too well. But you do have far more competition at LSU and in Florida. There's no question. Penn State gets in, and at Pete's point, there is about 4.5 programs. Right now, I think there's about 3 teams, but there's about 4.5 programs that are serious. And that's the Big Ten's problem. They've continually chased money with expansion, and the league keeps getting duller and duller because of it. I mean, they've added 7 teams in the last 15 years, and other than Oregon, they're really getting a whole lot out of anything other than maybe some basic cable subscriptions and a championship game. Like, it's just not happening right now. It's made for a very dull season, as much as what we've seen for, obviously, I think Ohio State isn't just, you could make the argument, the best team this year, and they were last year. They got the best program in the country, and Michigan won it the year before, and Penn State has that, and Oregon is rolling. But in terms of, like, I'm sure Buckeye fans are enjoying their season. I'm not saying that, but it's kind of dull. Like, this was supposed to be Penn State, Ohio State game this weekend. Big, exciting marquee matchup. It's another week of the Big Ten where you're like, what's the good game? What game am I excited to watch? And that's been a problem for the Big Ten. But it is an advantage if you're one of these coaches. And you go into the SEC right now, it's an absolute dogfight, 12, 14 teams deep, week in, week out. So Penn State might be the right one.
How do you guys assess what the difference is there? Because what you said, I agree with, and it also infuriates Big Ten fans. And, there were some pretty funny tweets when UCLA knocked off Penn State. Sort of the thing was, every week in the Big Ten, you never know. Is that how it works, SEC fans? But I sense that too. Now, you've got Iowa rising, and Iowa's had a history of, upsetting the apple cart of teams sort of in that realm of going to South Carolina and finding yourself in a dogfight. Iowa's done that historically. I thought that Ohio State, and to some degree it did, I guess. I thought Ohio State might find that at Washington. USC sitting there. I don't include Michigan as one of those mid-class teams that you need to have elevate in order to give yourself that type of competition within the conference at the quote-unquote middle-class level. So what's the Big Ten missing in terms of needing that?
That's a great question. Like, that's holistic philosophical question, because
local talent.
Local talent's one for sure. But in this era, like, you should be able to go get at Illinois the best receiver in the Sun Belt, or whatever, the second best receiver in the Sun Belt to go do that. I'll be curious in 4 or 5 years when everybody sort of has their rev share figured out and then their sidecar NIL figured out. I do expect the middle class of the Big Ten to rise, and I do think. Yeah, I do think we'll continue to see a Big Ten SEC separation from the Big 12 and the ACC, just because I just think financially that's where things are going to go. And yeah, the numbers, the TV numbers for the SEC have been really interesting to me, guys. You know what I mean? Like, just like the sheer dominance of those of the ABC numbers compared to the others. Those are eye popping to me. Compared to some other things. So that is going to be one of the fuels of the SEC, is the Broadway line, to reference what Dan said about BK earlier. That's the way TV is establishing that league right now. The viewers are establishing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, I did, I live here in Metro Detroit, and the day I signed with ESPN, I became an SEC homer. So that was interesting. Grew up in Boston, went to the University of Massachusetts, spent 30 years living in Detroit, and I'm now an SEC homer. So pretty good. Can we do something about the weather in about 2 months? I'd be favored for that. Do I get that? Maybe just a beam of light on my house. I'll take that. But in reality,
come down and visit me sometime.
As your Big Ten homer on this podcast, listen, we ain't doing so good. Okay. I don't know why. I don't. I mean, like, Kirk Ferentz runs a great program, but he maxes out Iowa. Nebraska's never delivered. I don't know. Michigan State's down. The thing that I think has jolted two things jolted, and one was Michigan winning the title. That made Ohio State was already all in. They've been really the only one that's always been all in. Michigan wasn't. Now they are all in. They're trying to win. Penn State's trying to win. Oregon is Oregon. There, it's a good addition. Indiana, though, has got everybody going, what the heck? What's our excuse? Right? So you hear, like, there's a lot of Michigan State right now saying, well, this new era, we can't do this. We gotta fire Jonathan Smith. We don't have the money. Dude, Indiana's doing it. You got no excuses. You just got to get a better coach. You got to get a better setup. You've got billionaires. Every one of these schools has massive alumni, tons of things. You don't have the sheer number of players. You drive into a 500-person town in the deep South, and you go to a high school football game, and it's a pretty good game. You go to one in the upper Midwest, and it is not good. There may not, it's just, you don't have that level, but you have money, you have prestige. These are great universities. There is the alumni bases are massive. All the things you have going for you, big TV markets. The Big Ten has had more money than everyone else for a long, long time. And I just roll my eyes when they sit there and say, if we only had a little more money. But I think that by overexpanding this league to 18, they have diminished the excitement of Big Ten football because the best teams aren't playing each other. And you're going to go 6-7 weeks. The last big game was Indiana, Oregon. Okay. The rest of the season, we have Oregon and USC. Okay. You have Michigan, Ohio State's always a big game, and it's intriguing because Michigan's won the last 4, but Michigan, that's got to be a double-digit spread. Michigan's okay, but they haven't looked good in their big games, really. And then you're going to have maybe Indiana, Ohio State in the Big Ten title game. That's great. That's find me another really exciting game.
At least you're building to that. By the time championship weekend comes, if you get that, and you also have Oregon with no other losses. I brought it up on Game Day Saturday. I completely agree. I don't think the Big Ten's middle class is what it is in the SEC. I also think there's a better than average chance that when those seedings come out on selection day, that you've got B1G, B1G, B1G in the top 3 spots. Now maybe. Yeah. Or at worst, 3 of the top 4 spots, depending
very
on
well
what
win the
else
title.
happens.
They can very well win the title again.
Yeah, for sure.
But in a week in, week out, what am I watching this week? It's just not that compelling.
Yeah.
Unless you're a fan of Ohio State or Indiana and you're just pounding some team. Hey, that's fun. But if you're just a casual viewer, you're like, well, look at this over here. The SEC has got it to a point where these are really competitive games. And all of a sudden you're watching Missouri and Vanderbilt going, that's your middle class stepping up and being an intriguing action, or Oklahoma, Ole Miss. You're not just sitting around. It used to be that way in the SEC. Sit around and go, oh, Alabama, Florida going to play in Atlanta. We just got to wait 6 weeks.
Yeah. The margins are so small, and never was that more in evidence than the Missouri Vanderbilt game. Go back and look, not only the last pass at the end, but you just have to make the right play at the right time. Missouri outgained them like 100 yards. Missouri went for it on 4th down 5 times. They made it 4 times. Wow. One time they didn't. They got stopped on the goal line. The quarterback got hurt, and they didn't score on 4th and goal from inside the 1. An inch away, from the potential tying, or maybe they go for 2 and try to win it at the end of regulation. And that sort of speaks to what you're talking about, Dan. And you brought this up on the podcast last week or the week before about the margin of victory. The average margin of victory mirrors the NFL. And at the time you did it, I believe it was slightly closer than the
actually
NFL.
It got even smaller. I haven't redone the math, but it was down to 10.03 last week. So it's as competitive as NFL.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
It's fascinating. Pete, pressure from other jobs being open. Everybody thinks they have the best job, but then the watches, there are others, whether it's Auburn, whether it's Florida State, others where they've had disappointing seasons. So probably a really important win for Auburn and Hugh Freeze. And now all of a sudden the schedule lightens up. So maybe things are going to change there. What kind of impact have all of these big time moves, Penn State, Florida, LSU, had on the other group who in some quarters have some dissatisfaction with the way their program is being led?
Sure, and you could throw Wisconsin in that.
And Wisconsin too.
I think. Good
point. Yeah.
I think as we move on now, and we're 12 jobs overall open, 8 power conference jobs overall open by Halloween, by the way. That is like truly bonkers. I think as we move on, the calculus of whether or not to dismiss your coach has to look at the competition for market. If you are a very good program that does not have the budget of LSU, Florida, Penn State, you are already on the second tier of hiring. You are already there. Now, Rece, I think what we're going to see too is we're going to see extension season, right? Mike Elko, does he get an extension? Does Clark Lee get an extension? Gosh knows he's earned one, right? Like all of a sudden, some of your strong candidates commit to we already saw it with Cignetti. Indiana, God bless them. They are paying in to stay in big time football. So I think you start to see some of those obvious candidates. People look around and say, well, we can't lose this guy. And the same pressures that have gotten us to where these buyouts are huge and where these deals are long are going to almost be amplified. You'd think at a time where the people are paying these buyout money that there'd be less of that. And the one thing I could see is now people don't extend the deals 7-8 years or whatever. They just pay more, right? Like and pay more up front. And that way the optics on the back end aren't as tough. So I do think that's going to factor in to the calculus. If you're Florida State and Auburn right now, you are not one of the top 3 jobs open on the market. And that's just and now all of a sudden, if you need that next coach, so we'll see. It'll be interesting with Freeze. There's a lot of discontent down there. Florida State, if you read through the lines of what they said, they want to keep Norvell. They want him to win. But if it's untenable, they can't. He's lost. Is it 9 straight ACC games? 8, 9? 9. I think it was.
It's been a calendar
year. So that if you were not winning league games at a league you threw a temper tantrum to try to leave and took to court, it's a problem, right? But they think a lot of Mike Norvell. He was just 13-0 not that long ago. He's a good football coach. They want it to work there, but those have to be some. Those going to be some tough conversations because you got to go find a guy in a market that is going to be hyper competitive, picked over, hamstrung by extensions, and hamstrung maybe by the playoff too.
It'll be a fascinating turn of events, and if nothing else, to Dan's point earlier about this week being Penn State at Ohio State, which when you look at the game day schedule in July and August, and nobody makes it out, we say, okay, where are we likely to be? I mean, that was like the no-brainer. Well, we'll be in Columbus that week. Instead, we're in Salt Lake City, where we're sort of hitting a portion of the game day schedule where it's like the ultimate road test coming up. It's like while Utah is still in it mathematically, and Utah is a really good team and back in the top 25, this is like a litmus test for Cincinnati. And we may, there are games on the docket the following week where maybe it is a little more contender versus contender, depending on what potential upset might loom this week in the Big 12. But that could be a game day site the following week, too. Yet another Big 12 contender. Can it pass the road test? The whole dynamic is different. It's fascinating. It's wildly entertaining. It gives new people hope. I mean, and on the whole coaching front, we're going to Utah this week with Scott Satterfield at Cincinnati. He's doing a great job. They could not wait for him to take the interstate out of Louisville that runs to Cincinnati. Which one is that? Like 64 or I don't know, something like that, whatever it is. They couldn't wait. So happy. And now look at him. Now look at he's got this dynamic offense and they're in contention to win the Big 12 and go to the playoff. Sometimes a fresh set of downs works. That's what all these schools are hoping, that somebody's going to come in with that fresh set of downs and get it just right.
Yeah, Brendan Sorsby has been one of the revelations of this season, Rece. He started off really hot last year, and then Cincinnati, I think, lost 5 in a row to close the year. But his jump in a year where a lot of the hyped quarterbacks have taken steps back and some unexpected faces have emerged, I think Sorsby has really almost positioned himself to be a top 50 pick in the NFL draft. And it'll be interesting for Cincinnati. He still has a year of eligibility. He's an Indiana transfer. He's just been dynamic. He's big. He can run. He can move. We saw Nick do the tape on him from in game day in game day last week. Like, he's a guy who could go be a $3 million quarterback anywhere in the country would take him, or he could end up just jumping to the NFL because it's become kind of a weak top end crop this year in the NFL draft.
Well, I think you were alluding, I don't know if you said it, but I imagine you were alluding to BYU Texas Tech a week later, which is going to be a super, super class. And, this Big 12 race is really interesting. And Pete had it right on Cincinnati. He made that call this summer. We did a Big 12 preview show, and I remember you saying they feel really good about it. They get the receivers. They were a couple receivers from being good, and they're rolling. And then Willie Fritz has done an incredible job with Houston. And they're in the mix now. So, and then you have these other Iowa State, Arizona State, Kansas State's rebounded. Yeah. A lot of those teams are making things very interesting. This league is just great. It's just a great league, and it is every year. And this is the future of all these leagues, I feel. We'll see about the Big Ten can ever get to it. But, you don't know. One year you could be up. Next year you could be down. And but week to week, you got to bring it. And I personally, nothing against Ohio State, Penn State, but I love when game days at places like Utah and showcasing a Cincinnati-Utah game or Texas Tech and BYU. The sport is, to me, one of the appeal I love about the sport is not just the heavyweight games. It's the whole fabric, the whole thing, the whole quilt, and that it matters all over the place. And, maybe they can throw tortillas at you on game day set. They can't throw it on the field.
I'm going to throw
Pete. I don't want to give a new gimmick for Pete, but there you go. But I love that. Hey, let's spend a couple of weeks on the Big 12. It's an exciting league, and there's some great football, and these teams are rolling. They're dangerous too.
Yeah, if that happens, not set yet. Don't want anybody.
I know nothing.
Assume so.
Yeah.
No, it's not set.
Yeah, I don't.
But if that happens, I am going to throw so many tortillas. I usually go out and throw T-shirts before the show starts, and we have some fun with that. I will still do that because I want the kids to have the T-shirts. They seem to like that. I'm going to throw so many tortillas because I'm really sad that they made them stop doing that. That was a cool thing. It was harmless. No, it doesn't hurt to get hit by a tortilla.
I smell a Ryan McGee essay.
Do you know that?
So.
Do you know that, though? So. You never know with a tortilla. Gets a shirt. No, this is.
Yeah, and actually, I probably would be smart if they just hurled them into the air as if there were no repercussions.
Throw them up in the high. Can you throw it just at each other in the stands?
Yeah.
Just don't throw them on the field.
Just don't throw them on the field. I get that. I get why you have to draw the line at throwing stuff on the field. I totally understand that. But I wish
how about the tortilla factory? How about the whoever is making the tortillas in Texas in Lubbock just lost like half their business. This guy, he's
you think they marketed like throwing tortillas? Like these are like Frisbees.
He sells an extra million tortillas. There's like somewhere there's like a data analyst on Wall Street. Like, why does Lubbock sell more tortillas per capita on Friday nights in the fall, 6 of them, than anywhere else in the world? And why does the local tortilla factory guy have an estate in Vail? This is just go with it. And now that guy's about to foreclose. Like come on, we got to think of the little man here. Bring the tortillas back.
Bring back the tortillas in a safe way that keeps Texas Tech from paying a bunch of money, and don't throw anything other than the tortillas. Don't wrap anything inside the tortillas. Not that anyone would do that, but if that thought were to occur to anyone, just don't do that. Just take them, hurl them into the air, and
we can't have nice things
get away
anymore.
But we've got Utah first this week. Cincinnati at Utah, big test for the Bearcats, and much more coming this week, guys. This was entertaining. It was fun.
I went by like
LSU,
that.
Yeah, LSU looking for a coach. Florida's looking for a coach. Penn State's looking for a coach. Carousel rolls on. Thanks for listening to the College Game Day Podcast. Download wherever you prefer to get your podcast, or subscribe and never miss a single episode. And by the way, for those waiting on the Captain Andrew Luck tweet, it was only a pregame tweet. I think after the men drilled and spiraling hurricane formation and spat at one another, and it didn't work, Captain Luck did not have much else to say.
He didn't have good mid-battle adjustments. It looked okay for a half.
Maybe next week. Maybe next week there's a great Captain Luck tweet. See you next time.